So I turn on, I'm watching the ball game, and I open my Twitter account, and I see you down on the U.S.-Mexico border, and you didn't look happy.
No, I was not. What I saw with the delegation that went down to our southern border was both heartbreaking and horrifying. And Scott, I'll tell you, it is a crisis that is owned and created by Joe Biden, and he has got to do something to fix it. Literally, in the month of March, over 170,000 illegal migrants came across our southern border.
How?
Because Joe Biden has put out the Welcome Act.
If you say you don't need a wall, how can 170,000 people come in the border?
Well, they are being picked up by Border Patrol, and those are only the ones that we can account for. Some 38,000 or more are coming across and are not being picked up. But let me tell you what he's got to do. He has got to reinstate the Trump policies that worked. I was down there on the border in 2019, and I saw what President Trump did. There were three things that Joe Biden could do to fix this problem of illegal migrants flooding across the Rio Grande and across into Arizona also. Number one, reinstate Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, which was apply for asylum, but you got to stay in Mexico. We're not going to let you in. The second was the asylum cooperative agreement that President Trump made with Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Honduras, which was, again, don't make the treacherous journey. Apply for asylum in Central America, and we'll let you know when and if you should come up. And the third was also a public health exclusionary order that President Trump put in order when the pandemic began, that basically said nobody is coming into our country. They're not being tested for COVID, those that are coming in. They have disease. There is crime, drugs. It is epic proportions, Scott. And those three policies alone that Trump did that worked are things that President Biden could do right now to stop the flood of illegal
I think most
migrants.
folks I know feel bad for somebody that lives in Nicaragua or wherever, but you can only do so much charity as you can afford. I mean, there's a lot of poor folks in Donovan, a lot of poor folks in Palmyra, a lot of poor folks in Pineville. Probably could use some help that you're now taking their tax dollars and giving it to folks from Costa Rica.
Well, you're right. And what's happened is, as a result of Biden's open border, catch and release policies, which basically is what's happening, is that every single state, including our home state of Missouri, has become a border state. Missouri is now a border state. And with them are coming crime and drugs, COVID and other diseases, and then the cost, which you mentioned. The cost, I was on a plane from McAllen, Texas, flying into Dallas-Fort Worth, and guess what? It was filled with children and illegal migrants and families that were being sent into the interior.
If you tried to land that plane in Canada, they'd have none of it, would they?
They would have none of it. There's no other country that allows this but the United States of America under Biden's policies.
And you think, I mean, I think honestly, well, I'm from West Butler County, long way to Mexico. You think it's not a big deal, but I remember, wasn't that long ago on I-44, they pulled over in your district, probably 3 or 4 dozen folks who were illegal, and some of them were even being trafficked, they thought.
They were being trafficked. They got away, many of them. Some were caught. But every state, including the state of Missouri, has become now a border state.
I mean, that's probably 10 miles from Busch Stadium.
Of course it is. And I will say this, that the cost to the taxpayer, because when they're caught and released into the interior, what happens is we're picking up their social services and welfare costs. We're picking up their plane, train, or bus ticket into the interior. They're coming again with diseases and COVID, and we're also picking up the cost of their health care long term and probably their education too. This must stop. The Border Patrol veterans of 20 years or more that I talked to down there have never seen it so bad. They feel abandoned and they see no end in sight. 172,000 that they apprehended in the month of March, and as the weather warms up, only more and more and more are going to come. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden won't even go to the border. They won't even admit that they have a problem. 40% of the field agents of the Border Patrol are being pulled off of duty, catching drugs, sex trafficking, cartels, and they're being brought in to be basically processing children and to be child caregivers.